I always thought I'd be different, that love would just happen naturally for me, like it did in all those romantic movies. But here I was at 22, still single, still awkward, still feeling like the universe had skipped over me when it handed out first kisses and messy heartbreaks. Every time my phone buzzed with a group chat photo of my friends and their boyfriends at brunch, I felt a hollow thump in my chest. They all talked about sweet texts, surprise coffee deliveries, soft hands held under restaurant tables, experiences I'd never had. Eventually, curiosity and jealousy won. One humid evening, after scrolling through Instagram until my eyes blurred, I downloaded the app. It felt shameful somehow, as if I'd admitted I was too flawed to find love in the real world. My thumb hovered nervously over profiles. Most were shirtless bathroom mirror pics or stiff group shots where I couldn't even tell who I was supposed to be looking at. I swiped left again and again, my pulse skittering with every face that disappeared into oblivion. And then I saw him. Ethan, 24. His first photo was different, not a forced grin or gym flex. It was him standing by an old iron gate in the fading evening light, eyes dark, expression thoughtful. Another photo showed a worn paperback in his hand, a cigarette half forgotten between his fingers. It wasn't glamorous, it was raw, real, like he didn't care about impressing anyone. My stomach flipped. I almost swiped left out of fear of hoping too much. But then, on impulse, I swiped right. Match! A tiny thrill shot up my spine. A minute later, a message popped up. Ethan, hey, I'm Ethan. I hate small talk, but I couldn't not say hi. I laughed out loud. That blunt honesty was weirdly comforting. Hi, Ethan. Honestly, I'm terrible at small talk too, so we can skip the weather. He replied almost instantly. Good. Tell me the last dream you remember instead. My heart did a funny skip. No one had ever asked me something like that. It felt strangely intimate. I dreamt I was standing in the ocean at night. I couldn't see where the water ended, but I wasn't scared. Just waiting. That's beautiful. I think you're probably braver than you give yourself credit for. I hugged my knees, the glow of the screen lighting my small bedroom. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. Maybe this was the beginning of my own love story. Ethan suggested we meet at a little cafe tucked between a record shop and an old tailor's. I promise it's not one of those chain places, he texted. Good, I replied. I hate places that all smell like burnt milk and disinfectant. I arrived early, nervously smoothing down my hair, my palms damp. The cafe door creaked as I pushed it open, and warm air rolled over me, rich with dark coffee, cinnamon, and something sweet, maybe vanilla. Small pendant lamps cast golden pools of light on mismatched tables. A vinyl record spun behind the counter, crackling softly. I spotted Ethan immediately. He was sitting alone in a far corner, half in shadow, stirring his coffee with slow, precise movements. His eyes met mine, dark and unreadable. A small smile tugged at his lips. Hey, I managed, stepping closer, clutching my bag like a shield. Hey, yourself. His voice was low, a little raspy, almost amused. You look exactly like I imagined. That's either really good or really bad, I teased, trying to sound playful, but my voice cracked. It's perfect, he said. He gestured to the chair across from him. I sat, my legs awkwardly tangling under the tiny table. Up close, I noticed small details. A faint scar on his jaw, ink smudges on his fingertips. The way he watched me so intently, it felt like his gaze could slip under my skin. We talked about books at first. Easy ground. When I told him I'd never read Kerouac, he looked almost delighted. Then I get to be the one who hands you on the road. That's a rare kind of privilege, you know? But as the conversation drifted, he started asking stranger questions. Do you ever feel like you're not quite real? He asked, his finger tracing circles on the rim of his cup. Like sometimes you're watching yourself move around and you could just stop existing and nobody would notice? A cold prickle spread through me. I mean, I think everyone feels invisible sometimes, I said carefully. Yeah, but you're not invisible to me. He smiled again, slow and unsettling. When we left, Ethan offered to walk me home. I hesitated, my stomach twisted. I couldn't tell if it was excitement or fear. But the way he stood there waiting, hands shoved in his coat pockets, made it hard to say no. We started down the sidewalk, streetlights buzzing overhead. But instead of heading toward the busier avenue, Ethan turned down a narrower side street. Shortcut, he said when he caught my questioning look. The air felt colder here. Windows were dark. Alleyways seemed to stretch on forever. My heart picked up. Ethan, where are we going exactly? Trust me, I want to show you something. You'll like it. Something in his tone, soft but edged with iron, made me keep following, even though every instinct screamed to turn around. The street narrowed until it felt less like a road and more like a throat closing around us. The pavement was cracked, littered with damp leaves and broken glass that glittered like tiny knives under the sparse streetlights. Ethan walked a half step ahead of me, his shoulders hunched against the wind. I tried to focus on the sound of our footsteps, the rhythmic crunch, but couldn't shake the sense that someone, or something, was watching us. Where are we actually going? I asked, forcing a laugh that sounded too thin. Ethan didn't answer right away. Instead, he pointed to a brick wall we were passing. It was covered in tangled graffiti, not the usual messy tags, but odd shapes, almost like symbols drawn by someone with shaking hands. Do you see it? He asked quietly. See what? Look closer. I stepped forward, heart fluttering. Up close, the graffiti looked even stranger. Faces seemed to twist out of the lines, eyes wide and hollow. My skin prickled. It's just paint, I whispered. Not everything you see is only what it looks like. Some things bleed through. He tilted his head, his eyes catching the dim light and turning almost silver. Most people walk past and never notice, but you're different. I knew it the first time we talked. I tried to smile, tried to ignore the way my mouth felt dry. Different how? You want more. You're not content just floating along. That's rare. The way he said it, almost reverent, made my chest tighten. I should have felt flattered. Instead, I felt exposed, like he could read all my secret doubts and loneliness. A sudden clang echoed behind us, a metal trash bin tipping over. I jumped, heart hammering. Ethan barely flinched. Probably just a stray cat, he murmured. But when I looked back, I swore I saw a dark shape duck out of sight. I gripped Ethan's sleeve without thinking. His pulse fluttered fast beneath my fingers, matching my own. He smiled slightly, covering my hand with his. Come on, we're almost there. He led me farther down the alley until we emerged into a small clearing behind what looked like an abandoned warehouse. Broken windows gaped like missing teeth. Moonlight spilled across the ground, illuminating more strange markings drawn in chalk. Circles within circles, jagged lines that made my stomach twist. Ethan crouched to trace one with his fingertip. Do you know what this is? No, I breathed. A place where the boundary is thin, easier to see the truth. What truth? He stood and faced me, eyes dark and intense. That we're not as alone as we think. Before I could ask what he meant, a sudden wind kicked up, swirling dust and leaves around us. I shivered, trying to pull away. Ethan caught my hand, holding it a little too tightly. That night, after Ethan walked me home, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the old apartment seemed amplified. Pipes groaned behind the walls. Outside, the wind rattled the balcony railing. I tried distracting myself by scrolling through my phone, but found a new message waiting. Not from Ethan, from an unknown number. Unknown. Be careful who you trust. You're being watched. My blood ran cold. I tried calling the number, but it went straight to a dead click. I sent Ethan a frantic text. Me, did you give my number to anyone? Someone just texted me something creepy. No reply. I lay awake until the sky began to pale, finally dozing off with the phone clutched in my hand. When I woke up, I had a new message from Ethan. Ethan, I'd never let anyone hurt you. Sleep more, okay? You're just overtired. It makes people see things. The words were meant to soothe, but something about them scratched at the back of my mind. How did he know exactly what I needed to hear? That evening, after a restless day at work, I stepped into my apartment to find the door slightly ajar. My stomach dropped. I knew I'd locked it that morning. It was an old habit, tested 3 times before leaving. Inside, nothing looked out of place. The couch, the little pile of shoes by the door, the photo frame on the shelf, but a faint smell like burnt hair lingered in the air. My phone buzzed again. Still up for tomorrow night? I want to show you something beautiful. Did you come by my place today? Why would you ask that? My door was open. Maybe you forgot to close it. It happens when you're stressed. I swallowed hard. He was probably right. I was tired, jumpy. letting my imagination run wild. That night, I woke up to a soft whisper. "You shouldn't be here." I jolted up, heart thrashing. The room was empty. I scrambled to the window. The street below was deserted. "It's okay," I whispered to myself. "Just a dream. Just stress." But then, on my way back to bed, I noticed faint marks near the door, small scratches, as if someone had tried to pry it open. The next morning, I found a slip of paper slid under the door. On it was a single line written in cramped, jagged script. "He's not what he seems." I crumpled it up, trying not to cry. When I met Ethan later, he pulled me into a hug that felt almost desperate. "You're shaking," he murmured against my hair. "I've just had a weird couple of days. You need to trust me," he said, pulling back to look into my eyes. "The world is darker than you know, but I'll keep you safe." His thumb brushed my cheek so tenderly I almost forgot to breathe. Still, as I closed my eyes and leaned into him, a cold thought pressed into my mind. Who would keep me safe from Ethan? The next evening, Ethan insisted on picking me up. "I want to take you somewhere," he said over the phone, voice husky and almost tender. "Someplace where I can show you everything." I hesitated, every instinct begging me to say no. But when he arrived at my door, standing in the yellow hall light with his hands shoved deep into his coat pockets, I found myself following him down the stairs without a word. We drove in silence. The city lights thinned until only the moon and our headlights remained. When Ethan finally stopped, we were in front of a sprawling, crumbling building. An old textile mill, its windows shattered, vines clawing up the walls. "Ethan, why here?" My voice broke on the last word. He reached over, brushing his thumb across my knuckles. "Because you need to see it. You need to understand why I've been trying so hard to keep you close." He led me inside. The air was heavy, smelling of mold and old metal. The floors creaked dangerously underfoot. Faint graffiti crawled along the walls. Not like the playful tags in the city, but sinister shapes, tangled like nests of thorns. We reached a wide-open chamber where the roof had partially caved in, allowing moonlight to pour through. Strange chalk symbols were scrawled across the cracked cement floor, twisting into a jagged spiral that made my head spin if I looked too long. "Ethan, what is this?" I whispered. "A place where the veil is thin." His eyes glittered. "Where they come through. They've been circling you for weeks." Suddenly, the temperature dropped. I could see my breath cloud in the air. From the corners of the room, shadows seemed to leak forward, thickening, coiling like smoke with weight. "What's happening?" I backed away, clutching my chest. Ethan grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to meet his eyes. "They've been trying to break you down. The texts, the whispers. It wasn't just your mind. They feed on fear, on loneliness. They're drawn to people who ache the way you do." Stop, I can't." "Listen to me." His voice cracked, desperate. "I've been trying to protect you. That's why I came into your life." The shadows surged, twisting into something vaguely human. Long limbs, empty faces, gaping mouths. A chorus of soft voices rose, whispering things I couldn't understand. My knees buckled. Shizauven pulled me close, wrapping his arms around me. "Don't listen to them. You have to fight it. Remember who you are." I don't know who I am anymore," I sobbed. The shadows lunged. Ethan let out a strangled yell, pushing me behind him. He stretched a hand toward the symbols on the floor, chanting in a language that felt like ice water in my veins. Light exploded from the spiral, blinding, pure, tearing through the shadows with a deafening shriek. The figures recoiled, dissolved, leaving only faint streaks of darkness on the walls. When it was over, Ethan collapsed, breathing, ragged. I dropped beside him, gripping his hand like it was the only real thing in the world. "It's over," he whispered, voice raw. "They won't come back. Not for you." Tears blurred my vision. "Why me? Why did they want me?" "Because you've always felt hollow. They can smell emptiness. But you're not empty. You're just waiting to be full of your own light. That's why I found you. That's why I stayed." The days that followed felt dreamlike. My small apartment, once so comforting, now seemed haunted by echoes of that warehouse. I'd jump at the rattle of pipes, wake up gasping from dreams of long-limbed shadows and whispering mouths. But Ethan never left. He slept on my worn couch, one hand always stretched toward where I lay on my bed, as if even in sleep he couldn't bear to let me drift too far. One rainy afternoon, I found him in my kitchen, making coffee. His movements were slow, tender, like he was trying to anchor himself to normal things. The smell of dark roast, the quiet drip of water on the window pane. "You look better?" he said, a small smile ghosting across his lips. "Still jumpy," I admitted, "but better." I sat at the table, pulling my knees to my chest. For a long moment, we just listened to the rain. "You never answered me," I said finally. "Why me? Really, not just the emptiness. Why did you stay?" He leaned back against the counter, eyes dark but softer than I'd ever seen. "Because you saw me." "What do you mean?" "Most people look right through. They only see the surface. You asked me about my scars. You didn't laugh at my weird questions. You wanted to understand. That matters more than you know." In the evenings, we'd watch old black and white movies. I'd press close to him on the couch, memorizing the steady rise and fall of his chest, the way his hand curled protectively around mine. Sometimes he'd catch me staring and just pull me closer, pressing his lips to my hair. The shadows didn't come back. Not in the hallways, not scratching at my door, not whispering outside my window. It was like some invisible thread had been cut that night in the warehouse, leaving us free to build something fragile and new. One morning, I woke to find Ethan sitting at the edge of my bed, watching me with an almost fearful tenderness. "What?" I murmured, half asleep. "Just making sure you're still here," he whispered. "I'm not going anywhere," I promised. And for the first time, I actually believed it. Weeks passed. I told my friends a carefully edited version of the truth. Some didn't believe a word. Others just hugged me tighter. But it didn't matter. I knew what I'd lived through. And so did Ethan. One night, under a spill of stars on my tiny balcony, he took my hand. "You know, you saved yourself as much as I ever did," he said quietly. "Maybe. But you stayed. That's more than anyone else ever did." His eyes shone, not with shadow, but with something raw and painfully human. "Then let's keep staying. Together." I leaned in, and he kissed me like a promise. A promise that the darkness would never win again. Not while we had each other.